but on the podcast, your voice is so much better than mine.
Oh,
like in the recording.
It's got to be. It's this microphone, I guess. This is a pretty good quality microphone.
That's that's a nice microphone. Because like I was listening back to the podcast and I was like, dude, I sound like Butts.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is Cinemasters Ultimate Timeline.
Welcome back to Cinemasters Ultimate Timeline. And on today's episode is Dinosaurs the sequel.
Dinosaurs the sequel.
Dinosaurs the sequel. So I am, of course, Andrew DeYoung, the Janglez the Strange, and I am, as always, joined by the wonderfully handsome Nate Draper.
Oh, thank you. You've given me that introduction before, but I'll take it. Thank you.
I think you're a handsome dude. Are you accusing me of not being creative? Is that what this is?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm accusing you of.
Oh, gee, man. So before we get into today's episode, I also wanted to say congratulations to you if you wanted to tell people what's been going on in your world recently.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. My short film, that's what you're talking about?
Yep,
talking about. Okay, yeah. So my short film, Shiraz, has been accepted into the Cinemasters Film Festival in Huntsville, Ontario, and it will be playing there on September the 1st at 7:30 in the, I think it's called the Algonquin Theater. I have to confirm the actual location, but it will be at that festival on September 1st at 7:30. It'll be playing with two other films. Both look really interesting, actually. One is from Barcelona, and the other one I think is from Beirut.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's an interesting selection of films that will be there this year. Yeah. And you get to hang out in Huntsville, Ontario, in Cottage Country
that's up
at the end
north.
of the summer on Labor Day weekend.
For anybody who's an international listener, because I just want to believe that we have international listeners, Huntsville is just north of Toronto in Ontario, Canada. For those of you who might not know. And
by just north, you mean like 2.5 hours north.
Well, yeah, that's close for Canada.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to say congratulations, and if you
Thank
are
you.
in the area and want to check out the Huntsville Film Festival, what's it called again?
Cinemasters
Film Festival on September 1st. You can check out Shiraz by Nate Draper. I unfortunately will not be there because I will be in the Netherlands for school starting September 3rd. But we'll talk about that when we get there. For now, let's move on to Dinosaurs the sequel. So just straight off the bat, Jurassic Park 2, what are your thoughts?
I actually enjoyed most of it. I actually feel like the first hour of it would make a really epic TV pilot.
We seem to like TV.
Yeah, well, I mean, TV's where it's at, I think. Well, the reason I say that is because there are a lot of interesting characters in the movie, and I feel like the first hour of the movie, I mean, it kept me engaged. I was actually really, on board with it. Now, the thing is, I've seen the original Jurassic Park, obviously, multiple times. I haven't seen it in a while, so I made it a point to not watch it and just watch this on its own without comparison. Yeah. And I felt the first hour of this was actually very enjoyable. And I feel like if you ended it, either like you could end it, pun intended, on a cliffhanger with the RV hanging off the cliff.
Oh yeah,
and that would be the end. I was actually watching it and timing it out, and that's about the 1 hour mark, right around there. And I felt like it was basically up to that point, and just a little after that point, it was actually really the gymnastics bit. And then the going to what city is it? Is it New York?
It's San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco. Yeah, I guess. Okay, whatever city they end up going to. It was around there. I started going. Okay, not as down with this.
Not as down. Yeah, the San Francisco scene is kind of notorious in that movie. Yeah.
And I just want to add one more thing.
Yep.
I have to say, I mean, Steven Spielberg knows how to stage scenes.
Oh man, does he ever?
You can actually really learn a lot just from watching these movies with the sound off.
Yeah.
Just from watching how the actors, like that relationship between actors to camera, the positioning is actually really creative in terms of how the scenes are staged. So
yeah,
good job, Steve.
Yeah. Were you aware that that Jurassic Park? Well, actually, it's actually billed as the Lost World Jurassic Park. It's not Jurassic Park 2: The Lost World. I didn't know that actually.
Oh, okay.
It's actually billed as the Lost World Jurassic Park. But were you aware that after the success of the movie, Michael Crichton, that's the author of the original, actually wrote the sequel at the behest of a lot of people, including Steven Spielberg?
No, I did not. Sorry. So he was asked by Steven Spielberg, was among these people who asked specifically for a sequel. It wasn't like a studio went, "Oh, we want another one. Please give us another one."
Yeah, actually, so Michael Crichton wrote a sequel to the original Jurassic Park. But what's interesting is a lot of what happens in the book is very different from what got into the movie, which surprises me. Is if you wanted him to write a book and then not use it, why have him write a book, right?
Yeah.
There are some specific
bizarre
things, like the trailer scene makes it into the movie from the book, and then a couple of concepts and some characters get changed around in both personality and name, but for the most part it's not the same plot. And I've read the book, and the book is so much smarter, it's so much better, and so that was really, really frustrating. But so I've read the book for both Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park: The Lost World. You've not read either, if I'm
I
correct.
have not. No.
Yeah. Okay. So again, this will make this is like the opposite of iRobot, but this will make a cool contrast because I remember what happened in the book. I read the book versus iRobot. You had read iRobot by Isaac Asimov, and I had not. So we've switched perspectives that way. So I did want to say, on my end, that there are some amazing shots in this movie. The trailer scene is so well shot. The long grass with the raptors is an amazing shot. And then even the T-Rex in the waterfall. You can tell this movie has amazing practical effects. I'm really glad that they held that over from Jurassic Park, because the practical effects are amazing. It's so good. And here's a couple other things. I am full of Jurassic Park facts, but I'll leave this one. The opening scene with the little British girl being attacked by Procompsognathus, that was actually written for the first book.
Oh,
it's in the first book, yeah. And then the initial ending was supposed to be a helicopter battle with some pterodons, like flying dinosaurs.
You're talking about the ending of Lost World?
Yeah, the ending of Lost World that was the original ending that Spielberg wanted in mind. And then 3 weeks before they started filming, he had changed it to have that San Francisco dinosaur thing, which is super frustrating because I actually think a helicopter battle with the pterodons would have been such a better way to end that movie.
With them trying to escape, and then
they're trying to escape on helicopters
going
and
after them.
Oh, yeah, I think that would have been way better. So, and the last thing that I want to ask is, and just get your thoughts on, did you know that Jim Carrey was actually originally pinned for the role of Ian Malcolm?
Oh, the Jeff Goldblum character.
The Jeff Goldblum character. He was actually, it was originally going to be Jim Carrey, not Jeff Goldblum. So I think that would have been an interesting choice. I think this predates Ace Ventura.
I was going to say, this Ace Ventura running away from dinosaurs. That sounds, I don't know. Think about it sounds like.
Yeah. Think about how different Jim Carrey would play that than Jeff Goldblum.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's a really interesting, idea to think, and I think about Jim Carrey in a serious role like The Truman Show or
Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah, Eternal Sunshine, where he can play serious roles. So I know he gets a lot of flack, but I almost, as much as Jeff Goldblum made this character iconic, I almost think that Jim Carrey would have done his own really good job at this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it would have been great too. I mean, I also really love Jeff Goldblum, so yeah,
He is a good
don't wanna
actor,
take away
but
from Jeff Goldblum.
yeah, he is a good actor, but I sometimes feel like he just plays himself.
Yeah, but it's who else? Like, I mean, he's amazing just as himself.
Johnny Depp does the same thing.
He should just play himself.
Johnny Depp does the same
Yeah,
thing.
but somehow with Jeff Goldblum, there's just a certain quality to it that makes it
he just
timeless. You
gets it.
You can't alter it.
You can't replicate it.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, let me do a quick summary here, and then we'll get into the pitches.
Oh,
So-
I had one other fun fact.
Oh yeah.
It was David Coeb, the screenwriter of the movie, is the guy who gets eaten by the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the city.
Yeah, I did know that. And some of the posters in that scene where they show like Arnold Schwarzenegger as King Lear,
Oh yeah,
just like joke posters and stuff like that. I thought that was funny.
that was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool when they do stuff like that with members of the crew get to be on film, like as little homages and set pieces. And I have so many random facts about this movie that I could spit, but I'm doing my best to curb my tongue because otherwise we could spend the whole podcast on literally just what random facts does Andrew know about Jurassic Park 2. And that could be a whole hour on its own. So. So let me move on
Bonus
to a
episode,
summary.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe I'll do a bonus episode. So a young girl is attacked on the beach on an island off the coast of Costa Rica, and this causes the company responsible for the dinosaurs in the original Jurassic Park. This company is known as InGen, to remove John Hammond as the role of CEO. So meanwhile, Dr. Ian Malcolm seems to have lost a lot of his credit. He visits John Hammond and briefly meets Tim and Lex from the original movie, and is then introduced to Peter Ludlow, the new CEO for InGen. The two argue over the ethics of keeping the truth about Jurassic Park quiet before John Hammond then tries to convince Ian to be the fourth person on an expedition to the second site that InGen had used to raise the dinosaurs for the original Jurassic Park. After finding out that one of the four people that was already sent to the island is Ian Malcolm's girlfriend and paleontologist Sarah Harding, Ian agrees to go, but more as a rescue mission rather than choosing to chronicle the dinosaurs to bolster public opinion, which is the original purpose of the expedition. So before leaving for the expedition, Ian meets up with his daughter, Kelly, and she decides to stow away. We are also introduced to the other two members, Eddie Carr, who is a technician of sorts, and Nick Van Owen, who is a videographer. On the island, they manage to find Sarah, but soon discover that InGen has already sent a team to take the dinosaurs away from the island. So a team that is led by Roland, a man who wants to hunt a T-Rex, and so he decides to use the baby T-Rex as bait to hunt a male T-Rex. Seeing the injured baby, Nick and Sarah manage to set its leg, but not before the parents come looking for it. The two adult Rexes then trash the trailer and leave it dangling off a cliff. Eddie saves Sarah, Nick, and Ian, and then is immediately torn in half by the T-Rexes. Now working with InGen, the team are working together to get everyone off the island safely. Then the T-Rexes show up in the night and chase the now amalgamated team into the long grass near a communications facility where velociraptors attack and kill many of the members. Nick makes contact with InGen's offshore personnel, and the group fight off the velociraptors long enough till the helicopters show up and are rescued. Finally, we see InGen take the male T-Rex that Roland had managed to hunt into San Francisco. There's a press conference with where Peter introduces the fact that the T-Rex is going to be taken onto the shore. The boat crashes, revealing that the T-Rex has escaped. It wreaks havoc across the city of San Francisco before Sarah Harding and Ian Malcolm then use the baby T-Rex as bait, put it back on the boat, and the T-Rex is sent back to Isla Sorna. And that's the story.
The end of Dinosaurs, the sequel.
The end of Dinosaurs 2.
Stay tuned for sequels, the dinosaur, the whatever, after.
We'll get to Dinosaurs 3. We'll get to Dinosaurs 3. For sure. There's no way we're leaving that one off. So just as a plot, like any major any major thoughts on like the original plot? I actually think that the movie wouldn't even be so bad if they just didn't have the San Diego thing.
I would mostly agree. I think there's also one problem with getting Jeff Goldblum to the island and then getting him off of it again.
Yeah.
It feels like there's he basically the whole movie exists to we need an excuse to bring them back to this island.
Yeah, basically.
And I feel like there was a bit of his motivation, like it was clear what his motivation was, but he gets there, he gets to the island, and he's able to leave. Now they found a creative way to prevent him from leaving, but it almost, I feel like the story becomes less about him, which isn't necessarily a problem, but I did feel like there could have been a better way to get him there and keep him there so that we could have what's really the movie's really about, which is surviving dinosaurs.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you get down to it, all the science that they put into the first movie and the second movie, like the science is great and I love it, but really it's a horror movie and the science is just to set up the horror movie. I mean, it's not really that scary, but Michael Crichton is a horror writer for the most part. He's a sci-fi horror writer, and so he uses these scientific ideas to create scary circumstances. And so Dinosaurs is awesome. But yeah, really it's just like the movie is best, and it's such a shame that this is true because the first one is kind of the opposite. But the movie is at its best when the dinosaurs are on screen and nobody's really talking. It's action. Because whenever
I would agree. Yeah.
Whenever Sarah Harding talks, she's always like, "Oh, I'm doing research and the T-Rexes came for their baby and now I can finally put this to put those myths to rest." Whereas in the first movie, Ian Malcolm was kind of the one who was always talking about chaos theory. And it is so frustrating to hear him never, like, he's always the voice of reason, which is fine. That's what he was in the first movie. But he never once talks about chaos theory or anything like that, which is part of the reason why I loved him in the first one.
Life finds a way.
Life finds a way. Yeah, precisely. And so, I don't know. I find this movie is, it's kind of like Ian Malcolm is a watered down version of himself. Like, they wanted the character because of consistency and because he's in the book, but not because they really wanted that character. They just followed what was in the book that Michael Crichton wrote. But actually, even Ian Malcolm, it's never mentioned specifically that he's dead, but it is supposed that he dies at the end of Jurassic Park 1, the book. So even though he makes it out, even though he makes it out of the movie, in the book it is assumed that he has died.
Okay.
Yeah. So then Michael Crichton sort of goes, his wounds were greatly exaggerated. But I don't know. I think they just were like, oh, we have this book, but Steven already had ideas of what he wanted to do, and that's the movie we got.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, enough babbling. I want to hear your pitch for this movie.
So I get to go first?
Well, yeah, I went first last time.
Oh, okay, sure. I guess that's only fair then.
Yeah.
As I said, I felt like the biggest thing was getting Jeff Goldblum to the island, and then getting him off of it. I did feel it was played a little odd in terms of I questioned Hammond's desire to send Jeff Goldblum to the island, to send someone on a research project when they're reluctant to go.
Yeah.
I thought was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is I actually felt like it'd be much more interesting if Hammond did not learn from his mistakes in the first movie. So I will get into that. So basically, it's the same setup in terms of Hammond. You see Jeff Goldblum on the train. He meets with Hammond, and Hammond's saying, I want to send someone back to the island. But instead of it being Hammond, it's actually there's an independent research team that's already gone to the island. And we actually start with Jeff Goldblum and Julianne Moore's character, and she said she's been invited by this independent research team to go. and she wants him to go, even though. And the other thing too that's interesting to note, like Jeff Goldblum's basically, like, if you think about it, he'd be experiencing post-traumatic stress, I think.
Absolutely.
Having being chased, I mean, think about being chased around a jungle for days by giant monsters that are trying to eat you.
He never gets chased around the jungle, and I think the whole thing actually only takes place in about 48 hours, maybe less.
Okay, right. Well, it's like 2 days, but
Yeah.
but still, it would be a traumatic experience for anyone.
Think about how messed
knowing...
up those kids would be.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Lex,
I think that was another thing that they could have maybe gone with, maybe. But in this case, I'm saying a lot more ums, I feel like, in this episode. I think it's because our movie features Jeff Goldblum. That's got to be what it is.
That's amazing.
So in this one, there's a independent research team. He doesn't want to go. He insists that she not go, but she decides to go anyway. Then Hammond approaches Jeff Goldblum and says, this is weeks later, or maybe not even a week later, and hears about this independent research team and says, we need to send someone to rescue them because they've gotten into trouble. And so that's when Jeff Goldblum decides, okay, I'm going to go to rescue her. So his mission for going is actually a rescue mission. It's not I'm going as a research. I'm actually going to rescue some people. So that actually gets him there. And then when he gets to the island, he actually shows up with the team of people. Now, at the beginning, he doesn't know. Like, they have weapons and all sorts of things like that. He doesn't know that they have an ulterior motive. And so as they're going through the jungle, he starts discovering that, oh, these guys who I'm with, they might actually want something else. We might not just be here to rescue my friends. When they get to his friends and find his friends, they're actually okay. They're just in the heart of the jungle. They've lost touch with them. They're actually fine. And at first, Julianne Moore, like, she's happy to see him, and then she sees this whole other team with him. And then what we realize is that team was actually there to try and start Jurassic Park again. They are actually going, and they were actually sent by Hammond. Hammond has not given up on Jurassic Park. He wants to make it work.
Nice.
And so he used the research team as a way to try and get there to see what was still going on. And then he sent in this team as a rescue mission. For those of you who can't see me, because you're listening,
quotes.
I'm doing the quotey things with my fingers. It was actually a mission all along to try and reboot Jurassic Park. And they show up and they try to build Jurassic Park. And then in the midst of doing this, in the midst of actually rebuilding the park, that's when things start going wrong. And then then the second half of the movie becomes, oh, this was a bad idea. We got to get out of here. And I had another idea for one of the characters. One of the characters I actually thought was really interesting was the poacher, played by the guy whose last name I can't pronounce properly.
You're talking about Roland?
I think so.
He's like the hunter who wants to hunt the T-Rex?
Yeah. I'm going to try and say his name. But I'm just looking it up. It's Peter something, I believe.
Oh, it's the bald guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that guy. He had an idea for a scene where they're being chased by a velociraptor or a T-Rex, and actually it would be a T-Rex, and he kills the T-Rex, and then Julianne Moore says, "Why did you do that? This is one of the last of its kind." And he says,
and the first, technically. It's also the first.
Yeah, technically. And he basically says, well, you want to believe that your discoveries here are going to, help the future, are going to give us insight to things. And certainly there's a value in that, but you've lost sight of what we can do with the future. What is science for? It's to actually, sure, you want to study these creatures, but we can recreate them. We actually have the ability to just recreate them.
Yeah.
So... and we can actually make them the way we want them to be. We could make a T-Rex that's not going to eat people.
Yeah.
So we can actually shape nature now. And by the way, I just saved you from a T-Rex that was about to eat you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So that would be and that would be sort of the content of the debate that would happen between the characters. But then Jurassic Park, the second attempt goes bad. They've got to escape. They make their way back to the beach where they're rescued. And it's Julianne Moore and Jeff Goldblum. And as they're leaving the beach, more soldiers show up. And that would be how it ends.
Ooh.
They got away with their lives. You
Yeah.
think, okay, this. You think by the end of this, it's going, okay, we're going to leave this island alone. But as they're leaving, there are more people that
Is it more
that
InGen
show up.
soldiers? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
more
okay.
InGen soldiers.
See, that
So
would
that
be
would
a
be-
great. That would be a great setup, like to leave it like that as a great setup for Jurassic World. If you've seen Jurassic World,
I actually have not seen Jurassic World.
okay, because like it's amazing how much what you talk about, and I'm like, oh shit, that happens in the book. Oh shit, that happens in the third. Oh shit, that happens in the fourth. Like, oh shit, that happens in the fifth. Like, you almost stole a bunch of ideas that happen from the sequels that we haven't seen, and you haven't seen 4 or 5, have you?
No, I've seen 3.
Yeah.
It was a long time. I think I saw it when it came out in theaters. I was
Okay.
young, and I probably blocked it from my memory.
It's not good.
Okay, that might be why.
We'll get there.
But yeah, I felt like basically, actually, one of the questions I asked was, what did Alien 2 do? Because I feel like Aliens is a good sequel to Alien.
Yeah.
And it's basically Alien just with more aliens.
Yeah.
And the big question in that one is, how do you get Ripley to go back willingly to this colony? And she goes back with the intention of destroying all these things.
Yeah.
And then things go wrong. But I feel like structurally, that's sort of what I was trying to go for.
Yeah, you have to- you
we're
have
going
to
to
come
show
up
up.
with a way.
We have honest intentions,
Yeah.
and then halfway through, oh crap, we got to get out of here. And then it's a survival story, and that's a much more. And that's why Jurassic Park was a good movie, is because it was at its heart a survival story. And I think the more like primitive instincts you get to, the more interesting a film it actually is.
Yeah, I totally agree. Man, I love your pitch. It's
Thank
quite
you.
nuanced. I do have a couple nitpicks for you.
Okay, sure.
Things that I like and things that I would change. So, the only thing that I think is a huge plot hole in your pitch is, why would Ian go on the rescue mission? Like, he's a professor of chaos theory and mathematics. Does it make sense for him to go on the rescue mission?
It probably doesn't. My reasoning was that it's his, in the same way it's his girlfriend, and he maybe feels some responsibility
Yeah.
in having set up things to begin with, so he wants to go and rescue her.
Yeah. So the way that I would get around that potentially is because he's the only person willing to go who has seen the dinosaurs before.
Yes.
So like,
Oh
what
yes,
if
that's a good point. Yeah.
What if
he actually could act as, he would be the one who actually is the guide.
well, he
who's
can't
the
be a
one who
guide
knows.
because it's a different island.
Oh, you're right. Yes, you're right.
So Jurassic
but
Park,
but he knows the dinosaurs.
right. So I
Yeah,
feel like
is
he's
what
had
I mean.
experience. He's had experience with the dinosaurs, because like that way you could still have your Lex and Tim reference. Because it could be like,
Okay.
because Hammond could be like, we want to launch a rescue mission to bring them back, but Dr. Allen and Dr. Sadler have both declined. We can't send Tim and Lex because A, they're Hammond's grandchildren and he wouldn't, and B, they're children, right? It's only been
Right.
4
and
years
they're
since
traumatized.
Jurassic-
They're still recovering from
Yeah, they're
the trauma of
traumatized.
almost being eaten by
Oh,
dinosaurs.
Exactly. And there, it's only been 4 years later, so Lex is maybe 16 and Tim is 14, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be about right, I guess.
Yeah, and then maybe even younger. And then the only other way that I can think about getting Ian to the island would be if Hammond said, we're going, because if you emphasize Malcolm's loss for truth, how he like put himself out there to try and get this truth because of all the cover-ups that happened. If Hammond says, we're going to do a film, we're going to send this research group or whatever to get the truth out about the dinosaurs. This happened. These deaths happened. We're getting the truth out there. And I feel like Malcolm would be on board with that, because that's a big thing he talks about in the...
That's good that you bring that up, because that was another thing that was cloudy in the actual movie. It actually benefits him for all these people to show up to the island.
Right.
Because he's basically discredited because he's been spouting all this nonsense, which we as the audience know is true.
Yeah.
So when he's protesting people showing up or going, it almost seems counterintuitive because he's lost everything as a result of people not believing him.
Right. Now, the fact that people are dying sucks, but the fact that people are the fact that they have a videographer. Now, in the original movie, Ian doesn't know that Nick Van Owen is from like a radical Earth First protest group.
Right.
He's just a videographer. So as far as I know, like Nick or Malcolm would be like, yeah, we should send people to videograph and take stock of what's going on, because then we can get the truth out there. For so long,
exactly.
for 4 years, people have been telling me I'm crazy, and I'm not. And now, so I feel like Malcolm might be on board with that. Be like, we want you to go, Malcolm, because you for so long you've been the face of this is what's going on out there, and now nobody loves a story like the public loves a story of vindication, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loves a tragedy. Everyone loves a fall from grace, but everybody also loves a redemption. So if they use him as a public figure, and Hammond uses him as a public figure to swing the story, so he's like, oh, Jurassic Park did happen. Malcolm is endorsing me, and now you can come to my new Jurassic Park and be a total like asshat about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So the only other thing that I would change would be, in your pitch, would be instead of going to start up Jurassic Park already, because I feel like that's a bit, it's too soon. You know what I mean? For 4 years, they do nothing with it, and then they're just going to start it up. I think instead the group should be going to log how many dinosaurs, like assets, are still there, and see what facilities still work.
Okay, yeah.
So that
Actually,
they can.
And that would make more sense. But
Yeah.
they're going ultimately with the intention of starting it back up.
Yeah, they're going with the intention of like, let's take stock of what's there so that we can start the park, and then at the last scene when the InGen crew shows up, like we see them starting to set up for a new Jurassic Park. Yeah, and I think that's really, really great. Like we're gonna reclaim this island and the other island, Isla Nublar, which is where the first park is, and that could be a great setup, cliffhanger setup for Jurassic World.
Exactly.
I think that's super great, man.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you. All right. I'm excited to hear your pitch.
Okay, let me get back to where I was. So mine actually, within the course of doing research of this film, I came across, thanks to my friend Justin Ferrante, he helped me come across a bunch of deleted scenes from this movie. And the deleted scenes were supposed to be more like the opening of the original movie, where you have like each main character was sort of introduced separately around the world. So they introduced Donald Gennaro, that's the lawyer. We introduce Dr. Sadler and Dr. Grant. We introduce Dennis Nedry all separately, and then they all come to the park. And I think they were originally going to try and do something like that. But so what I'd like to start mine with is there's this deleted scene of the boardroom, the CEO and board of InGen. And Peter Ludlow is basically explaining, he's like, we've had to put in or cover up the deaths of Dr. John, that's Samuel L. Jackson's character from the first movie, of the gameskeeper from the first movie, of other people that had died. They had to keep them all hush hush, and silence is expensive. And he's like, but there's a whole asset. There's a bunch of assets, dinosaurs, sitting on this island that we have tried to silence for 4 years because our CEO John Hammond wants to keep them just there. And he's like, this is too expensive. So as a board, I move that we remove our CEO. And so he goes, okay. They all remove him, and he goes, and then the motion's passed, and he's like, as hard as it is to talk about John Hammond this way, it's better for the company if we remove my uncle. So you realize he's actually related. He's just that bloodthirsty, right? Then we cut to Ian. But Ian has a limp because he got his leg torn out. I don't know if you recall in the first movie, he got his leg torn up. So he has a limp, and he has to use a cane all the time. So he has a cane from now on. And he is currently being asked about the change in the InGen CEO. So the scene we just saw with the boardroom is a few days old, and now a reporter comes up and goes, Dr. Malcolm, you've been outspoken against InGen and your idea that they have somehow created dinosaurs. How do you feel about their CEO switching? Do you think this will change your story about dinosaurs? Do you think InGen will corroborate? Like, how does this affect you? And he's like, I'm keeping to my story. If InGen wants to talk about it, whatever. Then we cut to another scene where we introduce Roland. That's the hunter, the bounty hunter who wants to hunt the T-Rex. And we introduce him. This is another deleted scene where we basically see him and another minor character from the movie who is named RJ. And RJ is super important in this scene, and he's super important to Roland. But if you haven't seen this deleted scene, you have no idea who he is. He's just, like, some scenes don't make sense in the movie if you don't know who this RJ character is. But then...
okay, interesting.
Yeah. So then Roland basically says, like, there's no fun in hunting. Because RJ's like, I've got a job for us. I've got this job. Somebody wants us to go with them as like a game hunter and protect them. And Roland is like, no, we retired. Like, there wasn't enough close escapes for us, RJ. It's not fun to hunt something if you know you're going to win. And we were too good at it. And RJ goes, I don't think you know what kind of prey we're hunting. Right? And
right,
what this
okay.
scene, it's a great scene. You should go and check it out. It's on YouTube. But
Okay, so they're all just on YouTube?
they're all just on YouTube. You just have to look for them.
I would definitely want to check these out. Interesting.
Yeah, for sure do. Everyone, like even our listeners, check them out. But so what this does is it recontextualizes Roland to show that he actually is a bit of like an English gentleman. There's a bunch of like white tourists. They're in Mumbai, I think. Maybe Mumbai, I can't remember. But there's a bunch of English tourists, white tourists that are like harassing this waitress, and he just goes over and beats the crap out of them and then sits back down with RJ, and RJ's like, you beat up those guys simply because you were bored. You have nothing to do. And I think you should come and hunt these because you have no idea what we are hunting. And then it cuts away from that. So then it cuts back to Ian Malcolm, who he goes to see Hammond again, so we can still have the Tim and Lex be there, but I want to add your traumatized thing in we just talked about. So like they're like Dr. Malcolm, people are going back to the island. Why are people going back to the island? And Dr. Malcolm's like, what? Like, I need to get to the bottom of this. But we can see like they are terrified. They're like, why would anyone go back to that island? So I like that. I also like that scene because I just think it's the perfect cameo to have two characters from the first movie not really have any relevance to the plot, but just sort of be like, oh, you guys, how are you? Like, you're all grown up, you know?
Right, but they do also contribute the paranoia and fear around where everyone's going.
Yes, I do. I like that. So I think it's a good scene where they are not superfluous to the plot, but they're not integral to the plot.
Right, got it.
I think that's a good cameo. So Hammond is now on his deathbed. He knows he's dying, so he asks Malcolm to go on this expedition, and Ian's like, no, I don't want to go back to this island, until he finds out that one of his colleagues, not his girlfriend, one of his colleagues, Sarah Harding, is already there with half of the team. So Hammond sent half of the team already, and the team is much larger. It's not 4 people. That's dumb. So the team is more like 8 people are already there, and 8 people are going to go. Right? And he's like, I want you to go because your research, so I want to bring Malcolm's research into this, your research on mathematics and extinction, which is from the book. If you read the book, I'm not going to go into detail about the mathematics of extinction theory and stuff like that, but if you read the book, it goes into more detail, and it's really clever. Basically, he's like, your research into extinction, I want to know why these creatures are surviving. I want to know why they haven't died, because we had this whole thing called the lysine contingency, which they talk about in the book, which is basically if the creatures aren't given this protein called lysine, the dinosaurs should die, and they haven't. Why haven't they? That's what the research is going to prove. And Malcolm is there because he's basically, his research in extinction is going to help us realize why these creatures haven't gone extinct, or why these creatures will change, how, you know, that kind of stuff. So in my version, Sarah Harding is not his lover. She's like a much younger like colleague, like somebody who he has mentored. She's also an animal vet, but an expert in large predator behavior, not in paleo behavior, because that's not a thing. Why would anyone be a paleo behaviorist? Dinosaurs aren't real to the common person up to this point, right? So
unless
she's
it's like a
an animal
new field and she's breaking ground with Paleo behavior.
Paleo behavior is stupid because nobody would do dinosaur behavior if there's no behavior to search. Sure, you could be like, hey, there's clearly predators because they have forward-facing eyes, but like I feel like her parents would straight up just be like, maybe you could, instead of getting a degree in paleo behavior, just get a music degree. Right? Get a music degree. You're probably going to have more use for that than you are for dinosaur behavior. Because remember, outside of the audience and a couple specific people, nobody knows dinosaurs are back. Right? So, whatever.
Right.
Anyway, so she is an expert in large predator behavior. That's why she went on the research. So she's there to see how these new dinosaurs interact, specifically the large predators. So then we can also meet Eddie and Nick. But Kelly isn't a thing because she basically is not relevant to the plot at all in the movie, so I got rid of her. So then on the island, things can pretty much happen the same way because like basically as soon as it starts raining on the island, where the trailer happens, the trailer shot, the T-Rex shot, like the bait can all happen the same way because I love the way those are shot. Steven really knows his shit. That guy's amazing.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. So basically everything happens up until the Velociraptors in the long grass, the T-Rex in the waterfall, the T-Rex at camp can all happen the same way. But there's no gymnastics because there's no Kelly because that scene is stupid. Then the only difference that I would make is that RJ and a lot of the crew are killed by Peter Ludlow somehow messing things up. Like, not directly, but sort of being like, well, Roland's not there. He's like, okay, we're going to go this way and do this because I'm in charge because Roland is out looking for Dieter, who died because of the Procops Agnathus. So he's like, I'm going to go deal with you guys. And he like tries to get the crew to go do something. And then they listen to him, but wind up getting killed. Right? And then, so by extension, like, and also the fact that both the InGen team and the research team were both larger means more people can die via dinosaur, because I think that's important. I want more people to die, basically. I just want to show the dinosaurs a bit more. So I
if you're watching a movie about dinosaurs, you'd want to.
Yeah,
I think you want your bang for your buck.
Right. I want more creative ways for dinosaurs to kill people. So that's one thing that I think the Jurassic World series does not shy away from. They're like, we have so many different dinosaurs, let's just kill people every way we can.
I wonder what that's got to be kind of a fun job as a writer. Like,
deciding
what kind of dinosaur and how can it eat someone?
You're an interesting character. Oh, you're going to die. I wonder how. Like, what kind of Jaws? Yeah. So
it's like we're gonna Game of Thrones, but you throw dinosaurs into the mix.
That sounds way better already. Like, I'm not really a big Game of Thrones fan, but like as soon as you're like, oh, Game of Thrones, but with dinosaurs, I'm already way down for that. Anyway, let me finish up here. So everything's the same way. This causes, so the fact that Peter Ludlow causes so many of his crew to die, this causes Roland to realize that Peter, and by extension InGen, think they can get away with anything. They think they can play God for the purposes of their both getting their creatures and controlling the creatures. So at the end, having brought down the male T-Rex, Roland then decides to let the beast go, because he got what he wanted and he doesn't want to be in the presence of death anymore. People who pretend to play God. So he shot the creature. Now, originally he was going to use his shotgun, but of course Nick Van Owen messes with the shotgun, so he uses that tranquilizer gun. But once the creature is down, Peter can be like, you caught your creature. Why did you let it go? And Roland can be like, I only wanted to hunt it. I brought it down. Right? The fact that I didn't kill it doesn't mean I didn't get what I wanted. What it means is it actually is a benefit, because I can let this creature live and not give it to you, because you people are monstrous. You're the real monsters here.
Right. It's like catching a fish and throwing it back in the river.
Right. Roland did it for the sport, not for the cruelty. Right? So he's like, I won't be a part of this anymore. You killed my friend RJ. So then Peter says it's fine because they got the baby T-Rex. That's easier to transport, and it'll grow into a real-size T-Rex. So that's really all they wanted. But then, as established before, the T-Rexes will come for the child. They come for the baby T-Rex, like the two adults, and they just destroy the rest of the InGen group, including like the helicopters where they're trying to leave. Like, just destroy them. Like, I want to see so much, like, Imagine like a helicopter trying to take off and a T-Rex just like crunches down on it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be some cool shots. Yeah. And so InGen and Peter never leave the island. And the T-Rexes blow everything up. And did I mention they never leave the island? And did I mention they never leave the island? Because I don't want to see San Francisco. I don't. Yeah, and
What's
that's my
wrong
pitch.
Like, oh, okay, cool.
Well, there's nothing wrong. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with San Francisco. It's just I don't want to see in this movie that takes place so much in a jungle, and then all of a sudden to have this weird third act, almost fourth act, kind of tacked on at the end to be like, oh, now we're in San Francisco. It was unnecessary.
Maybe it's like a metaphor because our ancestors lived in the jungle, and now we live in concrete jungles. And the concrete jungle is like a predator, like the T-Rex, that is actually hunting us down and will consume us unless we kidnap its baby and put it in a boat. Okay, so tranquilize it.
I know you're being facetious, but like, even if you had made the theory that like the concrete jungle is more dangerous than the actual jungle, because there's some validity to that. There's movies that have been based on that. This movie is not smart enough to do that. Or
I would agree.
Is not built with that in mind as a concept. It's literally just supposed to be. It's literally Steven just being like, I want to shoot. I think it would be funny to show this dinosaur in a scene in an environment that is not its own, and I don't think that movie was set up to do that.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably a way in which to have made that work, but it does feel kind of tacked on at the end of
and it was tacked on. Like I said earlier when we were talking, that whole T-Rex in San Francisco was added on like 2 or 3 weeks before they started filming. The original ending was supposed to be as they were leaving in the helicopters, these pterosaurs would do a battle and fight it out, which I actually think would have made for some great scenes. And as of this point, when this came out both chronologically and when it came out in time, we have not seen any of the pterodons in action. Nobody dies via pterodon.
Oh, yeah.
And we haven't really interacted with them. It doesn't happen until Jurassic Park 3 that we actually have a scene with the pterodons or with any kind of winged dinosaur. So
right, because even up to that point with them leaving the island, like, you're still rooting for them to get off the island.
Yeah, you want them to get off the island.
Yeah, and like, I think that's one thing the movie does do well for the most part, is put the characters in danger and then try and get them out, and then there's all these obstacles in the way that keep you engaged.
They keep you engaged.
Like the scene with them in the tractor trailer that's falling off the cliff, and then the guy trying to. It's a great scene, yeah. And I think those are the scenes that, just to have kept pushing that forward. I mean, that's basically what makes Jurassic Park, are those scenes of characters in danger, in jeopardy, trying to get out of them.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about Jurassic Park in general is when Eddie Carr saves them after from falling off the cliff. Right? He is basically the hero of that entire scene, that whole segment. He clips the trailer and stops it from falling for as long as he can, and then he saves them with the rope by tying it around the tree. And what does he get as a reward? He gets torn in half by 2 T-Rexes.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's one of the more brutal dinosaur eatings in the first two movies, I think.
You hear it like crunch in half, and it's pretty gruesome. But one of the the reason I think it works is because dinosaurs are a great example of nature versus man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Eddie Carr is the hero of that segment, and his reward is that nature doesn't give a fuck about him.
Yeah.
Right? And that is so perfect. It's so nature doesn't care about you. Nature, T-Rexes don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think it's that chaos, that chaos. That's chaos. That I think it's that chaos that really is the encompassing power of what Jurassic Park is. Yes, we made the dinosaurs, but the dinosaurs don't care. They don't know that. They don't care. They will kill you because that's what dinosaurs do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's definitely, I mean, that's sort of at the heart of at least the first movie, that question of how much right do we have over controlling and manipulating nature when nature has a mind of its own.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about your pitch. Your pitch, I felt like, was still trying to be sciencey, but your question then was the InGen group is more about like we're going to use science for progress, whereas Sarah Harding and her group was more like we need to use science for the benefit of nature, not just the benefit of progress. And so I think in your pitch you could get a really cool theme of like is like progress versus versus conservation. What is science for? Is science about rape of the natural world, or is science about preservation of the natural world?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was sort of what I tried to work into it. The other thing I wanted to work into mine too, I also like the idea of Hammond not learning his lesson from the first movie.
So as a reference to that, Hammond is in the book is actually way more of kind of a whiny prick. Like,
okay,
yeah, and he's not in. He actually dies at the end of the first book, so he's not in the second. But he never learns his mistake. He's always like, oh, we'll just make it work. Spared no expense. We'll just make it work. And he finally like just doesn't understand why people don't listen to him. He's always like, why don't they just do what I want? Like, I don't understand. And then he finally winds up dying. And it's sort of, you're sort of like, in the movie, he's this sort of misguided old man, but in the book, you're like, God, when will you stop whining and learn?
Oh, okay, yeah, because that was one thing. It felt like he's definitely kind of more of this benevolent old man who, yeah, in the first movie has the noblest of intentions.
He's dinosaur Santa Claus.
Yeah, he is. He is literally dinosaur Santa Claus.
He's dinosaur Santa Claus. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was much more interesting if he's not dinosaur Santa Claus.
Yeah, I think I actually think it's fine. Like what you say, he's still dinosaur Santa Claus, but he's still misguided. He's like, why don't we go back and try again? We have the funds.
Oh yeah. Oh, that might even be more interesting. Like he's still like the pleasant, jolly old man
who just hasn't learned his lesson.
Yeah, who's just so bent on this vision that he had, because that's usually what happens with visionary figures, is they get obsessive to to such an extreme that they will not hear no for an answer. Like a classic example is Alexander the Great, who basically got himself killed in the end. He just was gonna keep going and and his whole army was like, we're done.
Or even other obsessive people that we consider geniuses is Thomas Edison. That guy was apparently a total dick because he just didn't listen to other people.
I heard that too. Yeah, there's a great episode of Drunk History on that.
Yeah. The last thing I want to touch on, because as always it's my background, was the use of music in
yes.
So Jurassic Park 1 is my favorite soundtrack of all time. And Jurassic Park 2 uses some of those themes beautifully. So I'm thinking specifically when Nick Van Owen, so that's Vince Vaughn's character, when he goes into the communications facility and he opens the door and you see the original Jurassic Park logo. And in the background, as he's like pulling the brush aside, pulling the vines aside, in the background you can hear that dun, 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 but it's faded. It's in the background. And I was like, that is so perfect, because it's like, here's this epic theme of what it used to be, but it's faded. It's in the background. It's not epic anymore. And I was like, that scene alone is so good.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's some technical, like in terms of the artistry of it, there's some great techniques that they used for telling the story.
Yeah, this movie is almost my least favorite out of all of the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World series. Not because it's the worst, because it's definitely not the worst, but because it's the most ungraceful. Jurassic Park 3 is for sure the worst out of all of them, but it's so bad that I don't like it. There's some really redeemable features about The Lost World, but overall the plot is just not good. Or maybe not good is not the right word. The plot is misguided.
Yeah. Well, it loses direction at two key points, I think, in particular, where it sort of shifts and becomes something else.
Yeah, and it didn't know what it was. And I still have no idea why gymnastics needed to be a thing and why Kelly is even in that movie. Because if you think of all the most important pivotal points, Kelly is removed from the action.
Yeah, she doesn't really... I think they wanted to give Jeff Goldblum's character a backstory. And that was the that was the reason for having that character, because I think there was, or this was the 90s, and there was a lot of, in terms of screenwriting, and there was a lot of ideas of there was a very rigid structure that was conceptualized during that time.
Yeah.
And there was a big emphasis, I think, on backstory. And my guess is they wanted to give him a life outside of Jurassic Park.
But
and created this character.
In the book, Malcolm is like a confirmed bachelor.
Oh, okay.
Like
which would actually make more sense.
He's like this 50-year-old bachelor who's like done so much work on. I don't think he's actually that old, like not 50, but he's this bachelor who like is good with ladies but doesn't like stay with any of them, and so yeah, he like lives on his own. And Sarah Harding is supposed to be like 10 to 20 years his junior and is his like colleague. She's like worked with him, because he talks about extinction of all species, and she talks about behavior of carnivores. So somehow their paths crossed, and she became his like protege, even though their work isn't necessarily the same. They both work in academia.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. This movie is ungraceful, and it really cheeses me off how good this movie could be and how not good it is.
Mm-hmm. But one thing I've noticed, that it required a lot less reworking than Temple of Doom.
Yeah, or even iRobot. I think out of all of my pitches that we've done thus far, I spent the most time talking during iRobot. So
well, actually, I feel like the one that maybe needed the most reworking for me personally was Fan Four Stick.
Yeah, Fan Four Stick. For me, it was iRobot. I thought there was some great ideas, but it really needed to be pulled apart and restructured.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, that was certainly. I mean, I think a lot of them have required that. I just felt like, in terms of the overall quality, just based on the original material, I feel like Fan Four Stick was the one that was in the most need of rescuing.
Yeah, because I think Temple of Doom. Well, see, Temple of Doom had some great shots and great composition, and great soundtrack, of course.
It had same thing. It had some good technical
things, but the plot wasn't there, and we tend to focus largely on the plot. So for me, I think Temple of Doom, but this movie, I would put Jurassic Park 2: The Lost World in the same category as Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. In that, I like this movie. It's not a perfect movie. It's never going to be a Citizen Kane of movie prowess and plot, but it just needs a little bit of reworking, and it could easily have been an amazing movie.
Mm-hmm. What I'm curious about, I mean, it sounds like there was a lot of reworking later in the production and even post-production. Like, it sounds like they shot scenes that they cut that could have contributed more to the depth of some of the characters.
Go check those out on YouTube, like the deleted
scenes.
I'm
curious about that. But it's also like, it's amazing how much you can shape a movie in editing as well. Yeah. This is just coming from my own experience, having done that and witnessed it.
Yeah, the boardroom scene I talked about in my pitch it makes Peter Ludlow seem so much more ruthless. It's excellent, and the Roland introduction scene recontextualizes Roland into, instead of just being a big game hunter who's like, oh, I hunt anything that moves because I can. It makes him out to be like this like gentle giant. So like, there's a scene in the original movie, Jurassic Park 2: The Lost World. There's a scene in the original movie where he's like, Dietrich has gone missing. Nobody tells the girl because he cares.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the movie, we see him like, Peter shows up and he's like, Roland, why such a long face? Like, you killed the T-Rex you wanted. And he goes, RJ didn't make it. And RJ was my friend. And you realize, like, there's more to this character than this movie ever wanted to show. And I feel like we wasted too much time on Kelly.
Yeah. I feel like he was a much more interesting character that could have been explored more, which is why I was saying, as a TV series, you could have, if you'd ended it. Well, no, but think about it. Like, there were great characters, and there were some great actors in those parts too. Yeah. Imagine if this was actually the setup for another Jurassic Park, and you did it as a TV series, and now we're on the island, and then we figure out, we're actually trying to build Jurassic Park again. Well, how's this going to go? Well, let's do it as a TV series and have all these characters and get their backstory in there, why they want to be there, what's at stake for them.
I would watch the
and you
crap
could do it
out
as
of
a
a Jurassic
miniseries.
Park
It
TV
could be
series.
great.
Like even if it was like a Netflix 8-episode Jurassic Park, like each episode is an hour long. Oh man,
That's how I would do it.
So much
Yeah.
fun. Like
an 8-hour Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah. Oh, so good. And because then you could spend like the first movie could literally be introduction of characters and how they're getting to the island, and then second movie could be like, now it's dinosaur time.
Yeah, exactly. The way I would do it was kind of like Lost World. You do the first episode, we show up on the island, and you don't know that they're actually going to plan to build Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
It's not until
It's a plot twist.
You'd watch it and you'd be going, how are they going to do 8 episodes of this? They're going to be trapped on the island for 8 episodes. It'll be like Lost. Where are they going with this? And then, but then in
It's
the
a dinosaur, so
episode
Lost
2,
with dinosaurs.
yeah,
which I would still watch.
Exactly. Yeah, but they're actually in episode 2. You realize they're planning to reopen Jurassic Park.
Oh no! See,
And
I
then-
would even wait. I think your idea is perfect, but like in episode 2, I would have them get to the island and realize there's like something going on with some of the crew members, like they're not being totally honest, and then wait until like episode 4 or 5 and be like, no, they're planning on like bringing in people and reopening. This isn't a rescue mission; it's a reconnaissance mission to see what how if we
interesting.
yeah. And I think it would go that way.
feel like that would be too long to pull that to wait on that though, because I feel like a much more interesting direction to take is very early on, episode 2 or 3. We realize that that's the intention, and then it's a question of how is this going to work.
Yeah.
Because I often feel a classic example. So I believe movies are more interesting if the plot twist is revealed actually very early on.
Okay.
A classic example of this is the movie Moon, directed by Duncan Jones, starring Sam Rockwell. There's a very significant plot twist in the first 20 minutes of that movie, and the rest of the movie becomes about the fallout and dealing with that.
Interesting.
And I think it's a much more interesting approach, because what it does is you actually see more of the character when they're dealing with something new and something that actually really challenges the foundation of their world.
Yeah.
Like have you've seen The Sixth Sense?
Yes.
Okay, what I'm curious, I think it's a great movie, but I'm curious what that movie would have been like if right 15 minutes into the movie, he realizes he's dead.
I think what makes that movie so interesting is the fact that the twist isn't just a plot twist. It changes the way you view that movie. So if you know the plot twist and then you watch that movie, the movie isn't boring. It's like, oh man, if you pick up on the subtleties, you can see like conversations that he has with other people are really just conversations they may be having by themselves, or conversations that aren't really conversations. They're just people saying things that they would say in that situation without like. So I think the beauty of that movie isn't that the twist, where the twist happens. I think it's the fact that that movie becomes a separate experience the second time you watch it.
I agree. I do think it works. It works really well in that movie.
But I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
I'm
like,
also
saying
what it would have been like. I'm curious what that movie would have been like, where it's him figuring out, oh wait, I'm dead.
Maybe you'll
what does
have
this
to.
mean?
Maybe you'll have to pitch The Sixth Sense to me.
The Sixth Sense, the alternate Sixth Sense, which is it's fine. It's a fine movie as it is.
Yeah, it's a great movie. But
yeah, it's a great movie as it is. But it's something I've been curious about. Like, what would that have been like? Because then you'd have made a movie about death and coming to terms with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested.
Which, it's still in there, but
maybe we should even repitch, or not repitch, but pitch Jurassic Park as a TV series. Like maybe this is a really good idea you've got. Maybe we should sit down and actually be like, as a prequel to Jurassic World.
Oh yeah,
you should watch Jurassic World, and then we should be like, well, because the park is up and running in Jurassic World. How did we get to that point? Why don't we write like a prequel 8-episode Netflix miniseries? Maybe not on Netflix, but like an 8-episode miniseries of how we got there. I think that would be a lot of fun.
I think we should do that. The only thing is, we're gonna have to figure out a way to get all these studio executives to tune in and listen to it.
It's true. How does everyone not know that we're geniuses?
Well, obviously we're not.
Obviously we are. Anyway, that's about all the time we've got for this episode. So I'm just going to pull up. Why don't you go ahead and pitch yourself on social media again? See if you can keep it straight this time, because I think that's
straight
hilarious.
as opposed to going all over the place and avoiding the actual getting to the point of who I am and
who you are. Yeah,
you can find me on Twitter at Nate Draper, or on Instagram as Draper Nate.
Awesome. And I want to say again, like, check out Nathaniel's short film Shiraz. if you're in the Muskoka area, the Huntsville area, on September 1st. And as always, you can find Cinemasters Ultimate Timeline on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a comment, give us a subscribe, whatever you want to do. SoundCloud, iTunes, whatever your jam is. And we'll see you next week, where we're going to do our first animated feature, Shrek 2.
Shrek 2.
Awesome. And we'll see you then.
All right. Goodbye.
See ya.